Buenos días. Os habla Ana Peláez Narváez, vicepresidenta de la Fundación CERMI Mujeres y también vicepresidenta del Foro Europeo de la Discapacidad. En nombre del Movimiento Social de la Discapacidad de España, aglutinado en torno al CERMI, en nombre de la
On behalf of the Disability Movement, on behalf of CERMI Women's Foundation, on behalf of the European Disability Forum also, thank you very much for being here in this important seminar. This seminar is being recorded and there will be a video of the seminar posted in English and in Spanish. We are offering the seminar in both languages because we need to make sure that communication is as good as possible with our partners, the organizations who will be taking part today. So please, if you need to follow the seminar in Spanish, please activate the Spanish channel at the bottom of your screens. You will see a little icon with a globe, and you have to activate the language you wish to hear there. For blind people who are using a smartphone, you need to go to the bottom right-hand side, the last icon where it says More. If you click on More, you can select the language. You can select English, you can select language, whichever language you prefer. So, we are going now to listen during part of the seminar to organizations of persons with disabilities and women and girls with disabilities in Ukraine, and they will intervene in English. The second hour will focus on the response that we can offer from the other side, from the countries, from the neighboring countries, or from countries like our country, like Spain. We're sending out an SOS on behalf of women and girls with disabilities in Ukraine, women who are there on the front, who are leading families, mothers or people who are heads of families with relatives with disabilities. We also have interpretation to Spanish Sign Language, and we have automatic captioning, which you can activate in the language which is being used during the seminar. When we post the recordings, you will be able to see the captions either in English if you select the English language video, or in Spanish if you select the Spanish language video. So, first of all, on behalf of the organizations of persons with disabilities, express how concerned we are about the situation which people with disabilities are facing in Ukraine. Those who are trying to escape from Ukraine because of the war that they are experiencing. We are particularly concerned about women and girls with disabilities. They are running a greater risk of violence, sexual exploitation, trafficking in this such a very, very difficult context. I would also like to highlight the situation of people with disabilities, and mostly women, who are in institutions, segregated, locked up. They do not have any guarantee of protection, which they require in this armed conflict. That's why we feel it's very important to recognize especially the work which is being carried out by organizations of persons with disabilities and women with disabilities on the ground, and other organizations, similar organizations, and also, as I say, other organizations, also disabled people's organizations and humanitarian organizations on the borders and in neighboring countries. So, moving on now to the program, I would like to give the floor, and we are very, very grateful to the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR. I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Gillian Triggs, who is the Assistant High Commissioner for Protection. She's going to talk about the work which the UNHCR is doing from a gender and disability perspective. Mrs. Griggs, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Anna, and I'm really delighted to be part of this meeting. It couldn't, of course, be more needed to really emphasize the plight of women and girls with disabilities. But I'd like to begin, if I may, by congratulating Anna Pelez on her appointment as one of the vice chairs of the United Nations CEDAW Committee. She's the first person and a woman with a disability to sit on the UN Human Rights Treaty body, other than, of course, the convention itself on the rights of persons with disabilities. So congratulations, Anna, and thank you for taking up this this role in such a traumatic time in the context of Ukraine. May I stress perhaps a point of which you're all going to be very well aware, but that is the sheer dimension of the refugee flight from Ukraine. Over the last 3 weeks, we now have more, significantly more now, than 3 million refugees forced to seek safety. And our global protection cluster that operates in Ukraine and is led by UNHCR advises that 90% of those displaced internally, that is in addition to the ones I've described as refugees, we have a huge issue internally. 90% of those displaced are women and girls, with a significant percentage of them being disabled. We think, and these numbers, of course, and I'm sure you'll appreciate, are not absolutely concrete data, but something in the range of 19% of the cases that are currently receiving individualized protection support in the operation in Ukraine will be a person or are persons with disabilities. So that is a huge percentage. And I think you've probably all seen the same TV news that I have of pictures, particularly of older people with disabilities crossing rivers on planks, trying to find their way disabled in streets with shells landing, disoriented, unsure of what they're doing, and desperately in need of support. I saw one picture of an old woman with a walking stick, ultimately being loaded into a wheelbarrow and transported that way. Of course, we can always talk about numbers, but it's the individual story that will always have the biggest impact. And for me, that is an image of the impact of this war on people with a disability. Critically, then, UNHCR, as the Secretary General has asked us, we have stayed to deliver in Ukraine, despite the dramatic escalation of violence and human rights violations. And indeed, we're scaling up our presence where we can in neighboring countries. And we expect a very, very significant increase in the numbers of UNHCR colleagues who will be and are at this moment traveling to the region to provide support services. We, of course, an emergency operation, a politically neutral humanitarian organization, and we're providing in Ukraine itself thermal blankets, mattresses donated in many instances, but through IKEA, food packs, water and clothes for women and children with and without disabilities, and disability-specific hygiene items to ensure that they can reach the greatest humanitarian needs. an initiative which has been started earlier in collaboration with UNICEF for children is a very exciting idea and a very practical one, and that is the establishment of blue dot one-stop shops, if you like, for women and children. They're support hubs that provide a safe place for arrivals for people, of course, with a particular emphasis on those with disabilities. But the idea is that with that one spot, through the blue dot identification, people can get access to accurate information, to support and referrals to agencies where that is possible. And we hope that more and more are being set up. They're very readily identifiable, obviously with the blue dot, but it could be an institution, it could be a church, it could be a school, it could be a private house, it could be a mobile unit. But let's all watch out for those blue dots, because that's where people with disabilities will be able to get special support. Those spaces will also provide information on something that is increasingly of concern to us, and that is sexual exploitation and abuse, trafficking. We don't have data. We're speaking anecdotally, but we have increasing evidence and reports of predators effectively waiting around the borders to pick up people who are particularly vulnerable, obviously women and children, but again, people with disabilities, again, are a priority risk. And that is why they are a priority group for transfers within the European Commission from the border areas where they're especially vulnerable into the European environment. You'll be all aware of the very generous response by the European Commission, which has now activated a 2001 temporary protection directive, and that it will now be used to ensure that those people with, among others, of course, but people with disabilities as a priority group get transfers into European countries and will then be absorbed into the social protections that are offered under the temporary protection directive. I think you'll probably all be aware that the need for identification and registration is critical, and we are urging all neighbouring and receiving countries to embark on that process of registration, particularly, of course, for a very worrying and rising group of unaccompanied children, but to disaggregate the data by disability so we've got a better sense. You'll also all be aware of the UN standardized questions to identify people with disability and to establish the statistics, the so-called Washington Group question, and we do urge all national authorities to use those questions. I know I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to make a couple of very quick points. One is how critical it is to have the voice of people with disabilities in these discussions. And we hope that through the International Disability Alliance, we have the global network of organizations to help integrate those organizations with humanitarian mechanisms and to ensure equal access. So perhaps I can finish then by congratulating you all for the work that you're doing, and to mention in particular Larissa Beda from the National Assembly of Persons with Disabilities in Ukraine, and Tetiana Barantsoya, who is the UNHCR Nansen Refugee Award for Europe in 2020. And they are engaged in really extraordinary commitment to ensuring safe spaces for women and children with disabilities. So a lot of work is taking place. Coordination is critical. But we know that people with disabilities, women and children in particular with disabilities, have a top priority for removals and transfers. So thank you all very much, and thank you again to Anna for her leadership in this really critical moment.
Thank you, dear Ms. Triggs, for your important message here. Is very relevant to involve the office of High Commissioner on Refugees of the United Nations. So really, thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you. Ahora vamos a pasar a la Asamblea Nacional de Personas con Discapacidad, que es la
We will
organización.
now move on to the National Assembly of Persons with Disabilities of Ukraine. It's the umbrella organization for persons with disabilities in Ukraine. We have here with us Larissa Baida. I think she may have a problem. Let's check if she can tell us about the situation that's being faced by persons with disabilities in Ukraine. If she's not connected right now, then we will move on to the next presentation. Larissa, are you there with us? I can tell you that Larissa cannot contact, and it doesn't look as if she's going to be able to contact. She sent us a message. Thank you. I will ask. This is what happens when we're working with people in conflict, situations of conflict. If I can ask Sarah to read the message which Larissa has just.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, this is the message from Larissa. The situation of women with disabilities, as well as in general people with disabilities in Ukraine, is critical. The National Assembly of Persons with Disabilities, the NADU, is trying to organize the evacuation of people with disabilities from Kharkiv, help activists of the association in Kherson, people with reduced mobility, release a Paralympic sport woman and a volunteer taken as prisoner by Russian troops. There are only 4 people working in Kiev who are doing their best to help. In the regions, the members of NADU also help to organize evacuation. This is a very difficult job because the situation is changing rapidly and sometimes it is necessary to gather people with disabilities for evacuation in a very limited time. Incredible efforts are being made. People with disabilities are in a state of shock. Many of them do not come into contact with or do not have access to means of communication, which complicates the work. But still, the following work is done. NADU is cooperating with various international organizations for people with disabilities to help accommodate people with disabilities and provide them with humanitarian aid. On the basis of NADU members' organizations, transit centers have been established for people with disabilities and families raising children with disabilities who are being evacuated out of the occupied places and dangerous areas. All these centers are adapted to the needs of people with disabilities. Consultations for people with disabilities and their families regarding evacuation and humanitarian aid issues. Provision of targeted humanitarian aid to people with disabilities and families raising children with disabilities. The NADU has prepared and advocated amendments to the laws and regulations concerning the procedure of crossing borders by people with disabilities and providing charitable help. The NADU is monitoring and providing information on the state of people with disabilities under the war to the UN agencies and international institutions advocating the rights of people with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Larissa. I hope that perhaps you could contact us a little later and to intervene directly if that is the case. Thank you so much. So, ahora vamos a pasar a una fundación de Ucrania con el calor en el corazón que nos ha facilitado testimonios en primera persona.
Has facilitated stories, testimonies from women who are leading the Ukraine and have situations of disability. First, we're going to give the floor to Katrin, who is now in a center for refugees in Poland. Katrin, are you there?
Hello, Katrin. I don't know. We are waiting for Katrin from Ukraine, in this moment, refugee in Poland. Katrin. Bueno, creo que no tenemos. Vamos a intentar, mis colegas estarán intentando conectar.
Connection, I suppose my colleagues will be trying to connect with Katrin, but we're going to give the floor to Irina. Now is Irina connected? She's now leading the country. Irina,
A lo mejor mis colegas me pueden comentar.
Maybe my colleagues can tell me if we have Katrin or Irina. Good afternoon, Anna. We don't have Katrin. Irina is indeed here. She's got her camera on. We're going to try to help Irina connect her microphone. Can you connect? We're going to try first with Irina.
Could you please activate your mic? Bueno, mientras que vamos a intentar arreglar este
We're
problema.
going to try to fix this problem with Irina. Please try to get in contact with Caterine, and then we're going to give the floor to Chantal. Chantal, who is right now refugee in Sweden.
Estamos hablando.
Chantal, your mic is closed. Could you please activate it? We are seeing you.
Hello.
Is it okay right now? Hi.
Yes, it's okay. Thank you very much. You are Chantal.
Yes, it's me. I'm from Ukraine, but now I'm a refugee in Sweden.
And how is your situation, Chantal?
Well, now it's much better, but I have heard the stories about how to get to the Europe, the people with disabilities, how it's difficult to get to escape the war. I did it by myself with my son. I have a son, he got an autism, and it was very difficult, and it took 6 days to get to Sweden, but now it's much better. We are staying here, trying to organize our new life, and
yes, we can imagine. Chantal, as a mother of a child with a disabilities, which kind of needs do you have, for example, in the refugees camp or in the situation that you are now?
The first needs, well, I stayed in a relative's place, so it's we don't need a place for sleep or food and some humanitarian exit, but we need some psychological help because it's difficult to stay in one place, in a small place, so we need the help, this kind of help. Mostly. And
yeah,
it's a little bit difficult in Sweden. We go to the community to ask for this. Now we are waiting. They trying to communicate with us, but they didn't propose anything to us until this time. So I'm looking forward to get some meeting with the psychologist or someone for my son.
Very good, thank you, Chantal. And how was the situation for your son or children with intellectual disabilities, for example, in Ukraine, before going out?
You mean in the time, in
Yes.
the wartime, or before that?
No, in the wartime.
Well, as soon as war started, we tried to get out of there. So I took my car and my son in it, and everybody was in stress. So no one doesn't want to help us. If I say, oh, you know, if I can to move on quickly, or can you pass me there? I have a son with the special needs. Everybody was angry and didn't want to help. I didn't ask. After that, I didn't ask for helping me. I was only by my own.
What is your plan for the next future?
Well, I contact with the municipal commune here in Sweden, and I showed all my documents. I told them about the problem of my son. So now they're trying to organize a study for my son. Not the study, it will be like I don't know, some meetings at school, some time that he can spend at school. And on Tuesday, we have a meeting in the school, first meeting. So now I'm trying to organize all this. And next week, I'm starting to learn in Swedish a bit, because I need to communicate with other people. And I'm participant in a voluntary here, so I'm trying to help other Ukrainians who came to Sweden.
Thank
Because
you.
we live in a small port city where the ships ferries comes with Ukrainians. So I can help them to say which bus they could take, or which city they could go, or something, some information for Ukrainians who can't speak English.
Yeah, Chantal, any recommendation for the international DPOs organizations or public policies? Any recommendation from your side?
Well, I wasn't ready. I'm not ready because I have only my situation. Maybe someone got some other situations, and yeah, it's more difficult to people with disabilities to cope with this. It's more difficult. So I'm just the one thing that I could say, it's if you see people like that, you should try to help them.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chantal, for your intervention here today. Thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
Very good luck. Very good luck. You have all of our support. So I would like to know if Irina is already with us. Irina, are you there?
Anna, she is not, but we have Catherine.
Ah, very good. So Catherine, hello, welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much for your participation. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much for invitation. And this is very important for Ukrainian women with disabilities, for kids with disabilities. You know that world community, Spanish community, Polish community, and other European community are with us. First, I would like to say about situation for people with disability in Ukraine, before war and now. And afterwards, I will tell a few words about my family and my situation, because as I put in chat, I have a disability, I'm a woman with a disability, and I have a kid with disability. And I would like to sorry in advance, because it's my first time as an ambassador from Ukraine for such big quantity of people. For other foundation in Ukraine, I'm a volunteer for our big organization foundation, Steplomo Certis, translate that with good heart. It was organized by two women. They are just moms of kids with disabilities, and they give a support for 1,000 families with kids with disability. Before war in Ukraine, they organized concerts, food, different activities for kids, just to let kids with disabilities have a common and interesting life. Now, when the war starts, they couldn't leave Ukraine because their kids have very hard disability, and the road will be very hard for their kids. But they still staying in Ukraine, they help each family to bring food, to bring specific medicine, to find people who can help, to take their cars. And you know that the gasoline is a big problem, huge problem to take in Kiev. because no gasoline on stations, and it's very difficult to take something to get to each even between in Kiev. And they try and they do their best now. Also now they're helping old people who have nobody, stayed at home and have no possibility to walk by legs to a shop next door. That's what our girls are making, our foundation are making. In Ukraine, I also volunteered to helping to organize some activities for kids. I now saying I'm not in Poland, I'm Netherlands, and I'm trying to organize some transportation, some medicine, what is difficult to find in Ukraine now. Because I, first day the war was start, I took my family and we go to village in Brovary Rayon. It is very hard to stay there now. And we need 3 days to come back to Kiev, but it's only 30 kilometers from Kiev. And there stayed the only one doctor for several villages. And now I organize with volunteers from Netherlands who help my family to give medicine to them, because they have no blood stopping, no nothing at all, no insulins, no medicine at all. And now I'm trying to make this for Ukraine, for people who stay there. What about my family? We are really lucky because we see great people here in Europe and in Ukraine. In Ukraine, we take a special train for people with disabilities and come to Helm. It is Helm and Kiev, it's just 500 kilometers, but it takes us almost 24 hours to reach there, because we could go just at night, because our train was lucky, but a train who goes a day before us was shooted. People shoot to the train, and it was very dangerous to go. But we come to Helm and Poland. Also, people are there with great heart. They help in every moment. They gave me medicine for my leg. I have a trophic bond, open bond on my leg. It began just with the won't stop, and they give me a free treatment. They supported my child with my kids. I have 2 kids, 4 and 6 years old. And they gave to every kid who comes from Ukraine a lot of toys, hot soup. 2 days we stayed in Poznan, in Expo Plaza, a big place for 1,000 Ukrainians. And Polish people give everything they can, and even more. They give food, medicine, toys, different sweet things for kids. And they do their best and even more. I could never support that somebody whom I don't know could help so much. Then we found people in internet who help us with a living in Netherlands. Now my kids are in school. They are second day in school. But in Netherlands, there are no medicine for Ukrainians. Before we get registration. But I'm not sure if we have a possibility to have an insurance at all here. And doctors are very expensive here. So I have no possibility to take my kids to the doctor because my kid has a high temperature, and I have no possibility to get surgeon medicine to my leg because it's necessary now. But we have, of course, as many Ukrainians, we have no money because we have no jobs. We are now trying to find something, any job we will be happy to have. And people here in the village, small village, just 400 people living here, and they all try to help. They already gave us 5 bicycles for all my family. I'm here with my husband, 2 kids, and my mom. And we are just waiting for a result of for governmental decision about medicine, because I need some help and they can't get it now. But I will ask read this some foundations, but there are no foundation for help us. But it's good that we have a possibility to legal job. We just try to find it. For me, it's easier because I speak several languages, but I don't speak Dutch, and my family don't speak Dutch. But the only problem we have now, and my family and my kid with disability, is to have some medicine here. But people who stay in Ukraine, they have too much problems. Now, every Ukrainian, every second Ukrainian, I suppose, tried to help. All restaurants give free food for people who need. But in Ukraine, we have very high level of discrimination, very high level. It is about kids with disabilities. It's about women with disabilities. I want you should know that, for example, I have a disability card, and yes, and when I go, I have free transport, but when I go once, a driver said me to die because I have a disability and have a free way to go. And some people are very difficult to understand that, for example, kids with autism have some problems and their behavior is different. And they then come and say, you shouldn't do this for your kid. Your kid is have a bad behavior. You must go somewhere. We should call the police. And it is very difficult for moms and for kids to live there.
Okay.
And nobody understands. It's only the beginning for Ukraine to people to understand that people with disabilities and kids with disabilities have a right to live a normal life, or even just right to live.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Catherine. We don't have a lot of time because we have also other people waiting for intervention. This is great. Thank you for your testimony. And now we need to pass to another person.
Okay.
So thank you so much for your contribution, Catherine, and very good luck also with your child, with family in Poland. So really good, very good luck. So now we go to Irina. I think she's already she's ready to take the floor. Irina, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Good day.
Good day, good morning. Irina, how are you?
I'm better. Thank you so much.
How is the situation that you are living now?
Yes, when war is started, it's beginning from each of us, almost the same. One people had a call from friends that stand up, war is come. One people wake up because of loud of bombs. We are very calmly people and very peaceful people. We didn't deserve this war. Of course, our kids with disability, our family who have a kids with disability, start to have problems with medical problems with medicine. For example, my son have a cerebral paralysis and epilepsy attacks. He needs every day to take a medicine, and this is medicine just disappeared from Ukraine. To take it from somewhere, it was impossible. Also, in our foundation with war in heart, there is two amazing women, the head of this foundation. It's Natalia and Irina. They make everything. They make everything. They call everywhere and trying to find medicine, trying to find food, fruits, everything, clothes, all what they need. But not all in our power. Of course, we decided to leave. It was a very difficult decision, very difficult for our family because my kid is not too good transportable. He is already big, 16 years old, and we moving to the border with Slovakia 3 days. 3 days. And half of this part of our trip, Sasha, my son, has attacks in a car. It was very difficult road, and I am happy that God saved us, and we now in safe, far from this situation. But in Ukraine, left my heart. In Kiev, left my soul. And I am with all my soul in Kiev with Natalia and with Irina. I see how they trying to help. They have very big problems even with gasoline, because even when they take some food or some medicine, it's a problem to move personally in address for persons with disability. Not everybody is comfortable to move somewhere, because we also have a short time in the day where people in Kyiv can walk free. After 9 o'clock, it's already forbidden to go out. And also it's dangerous, but we believe in our army, we trust to them, we will win, it's for sure. And I asking about all of the work, please help to our foundation, please help. We need everything. We need pampers for kids, we need any DBNs, we need very big of list of medicine for kids. If they will stop to take this medicine, it's already will be big problems for them's life. Yes, I'm happy that I live in Ukraine and I have no medicine for my son. He can take it and continue his life. But a lot of people, a lot of kids, a lot of women can't do that. Please, if you can help to us. I beg you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Irina. You are not alone. We are with you. We are going to try to help you the best as we can. So, and we wish all the best. Thank you also for this important testimony. Thank you so much. Really, thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much. Thank you. I think now we have also Larissa with us. Larissa, are you there? Remember that yes. Larissa, hello. Yes, Larissa is representing the National Assembly of People with Disabilities in Ukraine. Larissa, we have already read out your message because we didn't know that if you were finally able to attend the meeting. So everyone knows already your main message, but perhaps you can tell us how we can help you as DPOs, Organization of People with Disabilities, and especially also taking in mind the situation for women and girls with disabilities and mothers of children with disabilities. How do you think we can help you?
Thank you. I'm speaking Ukrainian language and Tatiana translates my speech. Okay?
Very good, very good. Thank you very much also for the translator.
Yes. Я поділю свій виступ на два і буду говорити дуже коротко. Перше, ситуація з жінками з інвалідністю і матерями, які виховують дітей з інвалідністю, які залишились в Україні.
I would like to speak about 2 points, and I will try to be brief. Point number 1 is the situation of women with disabilities and situation of mothers of children with disabilities who have stayed in Ukraine.
І ситуація з тими, які в найгіршій знаходяться, це ті місця, які тимчасово окуповані.
And I will also speak about the situation of people who have stayed in the areas that are not under Ukraine's control at the moment, that are temporarily occupied.
Наприклад, до того, як я до вас під'єдналась, ми вирішували ситуацію, як доставити ліки для дітей і жінок з інвалідністю, які знаходяться в окупованому Херсоні.
For example, I was late in joining this meeting because we have to immediately find a solution how to deliver medicines for mothers, for children with disabilities who are now in Kherson city that is occupied at the moment.
Офіційно сказали, що ніби завтра буде зелений коридор, і тепер нам треба вирішити офіційно, як в той гуманітарній допомозі, яка буде йти, будуть коробки з ліками для людей з інвалідністю.
We received official information that humanitarian corridor was arranged for tomorrow, and we had to arrange how to include the boxes with medicines to the humanitarian aid shipments that will be transported tomorrow to Kherson.
Ми працюємо з Європейським форумом людей з інвалідністю, з багатьма міжнародними організаціями з усього світу і зверталися з ним, що ті правила, ті рекомендації, які були розроблені ООН щодо переселенців з інвалідністю, відповідно до 11 статті Конвенції, вони не працюють.
We have been working in collaboration with the European Disability Forum and many other international disability organizations. And we highlighted that those rules and guidelines that were developed by the United Nations, for example, Article 11, about the refugees with disabilities, they don't seem to be working.
Ми просили, щоб та гуманітарна допомога, яка надходить до України, була цілеспрямована на людей з інвалідністю.
We asked for the humanitarian aid that is now being sent to Ukraine could be labeled as specific aid for people with disabilities.
Наприклад, харчування для людей з цукровим діабетом, ліки для людей з орфанними захворюваннями і так далі, щоб коробки були підписані.
For example, to have the letters or wording on the boxes, such as food for people with diabetes or medicines for people with orphan diseases.
Держава, волонтери, громадські організації зараз роблять все можливе. Гуманітарної допомоги в Україні приходить багато, але вона не розфасована.
The public authorities work together with non-governmental organizations, and they are doing the best they can. There is a lot of humanitarian aid coming into Ukraine, but there is a problem because this humanitarian aid is not sorted into categories.
І якщо ми завтра разом з Тетяною Баранцовою, яка тут присутня, не знайдемо можливості в той гуманітарний конвой покласти ліки, як перелік, який у нас є, це значить, що жінки і діти будуть приречені на повільну або швидку смерть.
If me and Tatiana Barantsova, who is present here today, are not able to find a solution by tomorrow how to include our boxes with medicines for women, for children with disabilities, to be delivered to Kherson tomorrow, as they are doomed to a slow death.
Хочу ще сказати, що багато міжнародних інституцій, навіть такі як Червоний Хрест, не працюють в окупованих містах, тимчасово окупованих містах. І тому всі ці проблеми лягають на громадські організації людей з інвалідністю, волонтерів і державу. Прошу.
I also have to note that international agencies, for example, such as the Red Cross, are not working in the occupied areas, in the occupied cities, and therefore all these problems fall on the shoulders of volunteers, non-governmental organizations, disability organizations.
Тільки тісна кооперація громадських організацій, людей з інвалідністю, державними структурами допомагає нам формувати цілі вагони для евакуації людей з інвалідністю.
It is only thanks to close cooperation because between public agencies and the organizations of people with disabilities, we are able to provide the train cars adapted for special needs of people with disabilities.
Ви знаєте, ми ніби всередині країни створили і транзитні центри пристосовані, і налагодили комунікацію. У нас організація працює в повному складі.
All members of our organizations are working hard, and we seem to be successful in establishing transit hubs and in establishing communication.
Але люди з інвалідністю, жінки, не є однорідною масою, ми всі різні.
But people with disabilities, women with disabilities are not a homogeneous group, they are all different.
Сьогодні ми мали Zoom з усіма регіонами і тими, які виїхали уже за кордоном і які нам сказали про ті проблеми, з якими вони зіштовхуються.
Today we have had a Zoom meeting already with the representatives of our member organizations in all regions of Ukraine and with people who have left and who are now in foreign countries. And they talked about the problems they are facing at the moment.
Я тут бачу перекладача жестової мови.
I can see a sign language interpreter here in this meeting.
Наші люди, які володіють українською жестовою мовою і ніякою більше, опиняються в дуже складній ситуації за кордоном.
Our people who know only Ukrainian sign language and no other language find themselves in a very difficult situation abroad.
Не знаючи мови, ні польської, ні чеської, ні англійської, тільки українську, читаючи і жестову,
When they know only Ukrainian sign language and no other language such as Polish, Slovak, Czech language or
тому
English.
ми рекомендували в тих країнах, які приймають переселенців з інвалідністю,
Therefore, we recommended that those countries that accept refugees, displaced people with disabilities,
був телефон організації, яка може надати переклад української жестової мови перекладач.
to disseminate information about the contact details of organizations that would provide sign language interpretation.
Ми всі в Україні користуємося додатками, вони можуть говорити в різних програмах і зв'язуватися з перекладачами, які тут працюють в Україні, і вони згодні допомагати.
In Ukraine, we have different applications. We have sign language interpreters, and it is possible to connect with these sign language interpreters, and they are willing to help.
Просто треба налагодити комунікацію.
We just need to establish communication.
І ще я хотіла сказати про жінок, дітей з інституційних закладів.
And also, I wanted to talk about women and children from institutional settings.
Говорю вам чесно і відверто, ваші країни уже не можуть, ми це офіційно знаємо підтвердження, приймати таку кількість людей з інвалідністю.
I can say openly and honestly, and we have received official confirmation from your countries that they are no longer able to receive these great numbers of people with disabilities.
Враховуючи, що російські окупанти цілеспрямовано бомблять інституційні заклади, дитячі заклади,
Bearing in mind that Russian occupiers specifically aim with their bombardments at institutional settings, child homes.
Звичайно, ці люди, жінки і діти, були переведені в більш безпечні райони на території України. Частину дітей ми змогли евакуювати в ваші країни. Ви про це знаєте.
These women and children have been evacuated to safer areas within Ukraine, and some of them were evacuated to your countries, and you know about that.
Але в нас є частина закладів, де знаходяться люди з інтелектуальними психічними порушеннями, які є лежачими хворими. Я не думаю, що вони будуть евакуйовані. Вони знаходяться в Україні, і персоналу для їх за догляду за ним їх не вистачає.
But we have some institutions that are for people with intellectual and mental health disabilities. Many of them bedridden, and there is currently a shortage of staff to care for these people.
Ви знаєте, народ в Україні як один ціле, я вже буду зараз завершувати, і мами дітей з інвалідністю, жінки з інвалідністю допомагають, чим можуть.
I am coming to the end of my intervention here, and I want to say that Ukrainian people has become as one single whole. People with disabilities, mothers of children with disabilities are also helping in any way they can.
Я вам дуже швидко розкажу історію однієї мами, не називаючи її прізвища.
Let me tell you a very brief story of one mother without giving.
Бо ми знаємо, що переслідуються активісти з інвалідністю, прямо вбиваються вже в домах, ви це бачите з інтернету, з сюжетів.
Because as you may have seen from internet, from news items, activists, including activists with disabilities, are persecuted and even killed.
Тому ми не виставляємо дуже багато інформації, обмежена дуже, яка потрібна безпосередньо для того, щоб вижити людям з інвалідністю.
Therefore, we are very careful with information we have, and we share only very limited information just to make sure that it helps people with disabilities to survive.
Це мама, яка керує дуже великою організацією, мама дорослого сина.
It is a mother who has an adult son, and she is the leader of a large organization.
Її звати Світлана.
Her name is Svetlana.
В неї в організації дуже важкі хворі діти з супутніми видами інвалідності.
Her organization supports adults and children with very severe disabilities with concurrent disabilities.
І вони самотужки частину дітей вивезли в Польщу, їх прийняли польські організації.
They managed to evacuate some of children with disabilities to Poland, and these children were received and welcomed by Polish organizations. And this lady with her organization did it on their own.
Що сказали ці мами? Вони залишили своїх дітей і двох мам, і з гуманітарною допомогою повернулися в Україну.
What these mothers said, they left their children in Poland, and two more mothers stayed to care with these children, and the rest returned to Ukraine with humanitarian aid.
Забрали ще групу дітей і знов вивезли.
Then they formed another group of children and evacuated them as well.
І знов повернулись в Україну.
And then they came back here to Ukraine.
Я хочу сказати, що сьогодні жінки, дівчата з інвалідністю, матері, які виховують дітей з інвалідністю, допомагають своїй країні кожен чим може.
I want to highlight that today women with disabilities, mothers of children with disabilities, are helping their country in any way they can.
Але я звертаюся до вас, що для того, щоб наші дії були злагодженими,
But I would like to call upon you to make sure that we work in a coordinated manner.
Потрібна координація, дуже швидка і негайна, всіх міжнародних інституцій.
The efforts of all international agencies and institutions need to be coordinated very urgently.
Жіночі організації можуть скоординуватися з організаціями людей з інвалідністю в ваших країнах. Це дуже потужний ресурс, який вже працює, допомагаючи нам.
Women's organizations in your countries can coordinate their efforts with disability organizations in your countries. They are very powerful resource that has been working a lot to help us.
Бо безпосередньо люди з інвалідністю і організації, які їх представляють, знають, що потрібно.
Because it is people with disabilities themselves and disability organizations have very good knowledge of what is required.
Але ця координація потрібна сьогодні.
Sorry to interrupt Larissa, because we don't have much more time. We have also other people waiting for the floor. So perhaps could you please finalize your intervention?
Larissa just said that this coordination needs to happen today. Larissa, вас просила завершити свій виступ.
Я вже буду завершувати виступ, бо знаю, що дуже багато хочуть вивчити. Але єдине намагання, прохання всіх людей з інвалідністю – це мирного неба в Україні і миру нам в нашій країні. Я думаю, що такий потужний ресурс, як жіночі організації, як жінки ООН, може сприяти тому, щоб в Україні був мир.
I will conclude my intervention here. Only one thing. Women's organizations in your countries, such strong organizations as your women, are very powerful, and you can do a lot to achieve peace.
Larissa, thank you so much for your intervention, your recommendations. which are really very valuable for all of us. Thank you so much, and perhaps we for sure will keep in touch. So really, thank you so much, and you have all of our recognition and support. Thank you so much. So now we go to an organization, a little organization of women with disabilities in the north of Donbass. I think Angelina is waiting also for us, but Angelina has problem with English. I don't know if she has someone for supporting her from Ukraine to English. If not, perhaps we can find someone here in the seminar. Angelina, are you there?
Ангеліна, ви тут?
I don't know. Are you there, Angelina?
Ангеліна, ви тут?
Тут.
She is here, yes.
Yes. Thank you also for the person who is helping us for introduce Angelina and helping her for intervention. So, Angelina, you have the floor. How is the situation for women and girls with disabilities? What is your work in this regard?
Ангеліна, скажіть, будь ласка, яка ситуація з жінок з інвалідністю і як ви працюєте в цьому напрямку?
Ну, ситуация, как у всех в Украине, также на Донбассе. На сьогоднішній день...
Ангеліна, вибачте, робіть, будь ласка, паузу, бо я не можу перекладати синхронно.
Ага, добре.
The situation is practically the same as everywhere in Ukraine.
Имея опыт 2014 года, когда мы эвакуировали людей в Одессу, когда обстреливали наши города Славянск, Краматорскую и Донецкую область, и Луганскую, было легче. Перевозили эшелонами по 500-300 человек, эвакуировали людей. На сегодняшний день намного все сложнее.
Зупиніться, не встигають перекладати.
Ага.
Ангеліна, тут немає функції синхронного перекладу, тому я буду перекладати послідовно. I survived 2014 and I had similar experience then. When we evacuated people to Odessa from Lugansk, Kramatorsk, that were under constant shelling. But it was easier then because then we had opportunity to form trains and to transport 300 to 400 people to safer areas. Прошу, Ангелина.
Тогда вроде как мы везли очень большое количество людей. На сегодняшний день мы не можем также вывозить людей, потому что выезжают полностью все жители города и едут по 12-14 часов стоя. Для людей с инвалидностью это невозможно. Мы автобусами специализированными...
Минуточку, Ангелина.
Зупиніться, речення сказали, зупиніться.
It was easier in the past because we could transport them large groups of people. But today it is impossible because now it is the entire population of a city or town who want to evacuate. And transport is a very big problem because it goes very slowly and people have to travel standing for 12 to 14 hours. And it is really hard for people with disabilities. Прошу, Ангелина.
2014 год показал, что власть не сработала честно и правильно для того, чтобы проплатить те места, где мы были. Более 3 месяцев люди проживали, а потом более 3 лет. Их выселили с Одесской области, с санаториев.
Извините, Ангелина, нужно паузу. The situation in 2014 demonstrated that public authorities didn't work efficiently and they didn't work honestly because people who were displaced in the end were expected to pay for their accommodation and eventually they were required to leave the premises after 3 months or after years, after a number of years. Прошу, Ангелина.
Да.
Я хочу сказать, что тогда людей наших пришлось возвращать, и возвращать просто было тоже некуда, потому что разбитые дома, захваченные территории. На сегодняшний день они проживают.
So I want to say that eventually we had to bring people back, but there was nowhere to bring them back because their houses were ruined, the areas were destroyed. Прошу.
На сегодняшний день они проживают в санатории по 200-300 человек в комнатах и до сих пор не имеют собственного жилья. Чтобы вывести этих людей и уберечь их от бомбежек уже в Светогорске, в том же Краматорске, Славянске, практически не предоставляется возможности. Это очень сложно.
Спасибо. So it is very difficult to evacuate people from Kramatorsk, Slavyansk, Svetlogorsk, because now we don't have any practical opportunity to do that. And now they are living in resort centers in the numbers of 200, 300. They are staying in common rooms, and it is really hard for them. Прошу.
Люди, которые, я говорю в основном о людях с нарушением опорно-двигательного аппарата. Сегодня созданный нами центр общественностью, который находится в городе Краматорске, он полностью архитектурно доступный для этой категории.
I'm speaking mostly about people with musculoskeletal problems. And today in Kramatorsk, we have one center that is operational and it is fully adapted for people with this type of disability.
Но пришло время, когда там находиться очень-очень опасно.
But the time has come when it is really, really dangerous to stay there. Прошу.
Отключены в городе все лифты. Люди, которые проживают на высоких этажах, они все спустились, попросились перебыть в центре. Это люди на колясках, протезах, костылях, палочках.
In our city, no elevator is working at the apartment building. So people who live on higher floors and who use walking sticks or wheelchairs have asked to stay at our center temporarily.
Еще центр сейчас является как перевалочной такой базой, где везут с Изюма людей, с Волновахи. И здесь, проживая несколько дней, формируют поезда и везут на Западную Украину или же на Польшу и Италию, Германию.
Also, now our center functions as a transit hub, where people come from Izum, Volnovakha, and other areas that are severely burned. And they are staying at our center for 2 or 3 days, or maybe longer, until the groups are formed to be taken to the Western Ukraine, to Poland, to Italy, Germany. Прошу, Ангелина.
Наверное, необходимо сегодня где-то нашей организации, Национальной ассамблеи, тесно сотрудничать с вашими фондами, со всеми. Они координируют полностью работу наших организаций центра. Мы работаем 30 лет вместе, поэтому каждое наше предложение и каждая наша проблема мы передаем им. И они знают, как организовать, как нам помочь. У нас очень важно, у нас еще при правительстве есть...
Минутку, Ангелина, минуточку. So it is
sorry to interrupt. Before just receive the last translation, we need to close here also with the intervention of Angelina. So please translate and then tell her that we need to finish her intervention, please.
Okay. So now it is really important to coordinate the efforts of Ukrainian NGOs, the National Assembly of People with Disabilities, and international organizations and foundations. The National Assembly of People with Disabilities has the full picture, full information, because we've been working with them for 30 years, and we pass them information about our problems, about our needs. Ангеліна, вас попросили завершувати виступ, дуже мало часу.
Я хотела сказать, что наши проблемы знает уполномоченная по правам людей с инвалидностью при Кабинете министров, и мы очень тесно работаем. Поэтому очень хотелось бы, чтобы вы тоже нам содействовали, помогали и сделали все возможное для того, чтобы вот именно Донбасс спасти, Луганскую, Донецкую область, да все области, через Татьяну Баранцову, через Ларису Байду, Викторию Назаренко. Мы будем вам очень благодарны, если вы найдете нам места, убежища, которые будут архитектурно доступны для того, чтобы хоть как-то себя чувствовать независимым, не обузой, потому что нарушение опорно-двигательного аппарата – это очень серьезное заболевание.
Also, another agency that has very good information about our current situation is the Government's Commissioner for the Rights of People with Disabilities. And we ask you to work with them, with the National Assembly, with the Government's Commissioner, to help us find accommodation or shelters in your countries that are at least basically fitted out to accommodate our needs, because it is really important for us. And please help us to save Donbas region, Lugansk region, and all regions in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Angelina, for this important testimony.
Дякую, Ангеліна, за ваш важливий виступ.
For the information in relation with the situation for women with disabilities in your country and the work that you are doing in your organization.
І ту роботу, яку ви робите по своїй організації. Зараз я включаюсь.
Thank you. Thank you also very much for the translator. Thank you. Thank you, man. Thank you very much. So now we go to another organization. It's also an organization of people with disabilities which is part of the National Assembly of People with Disabilities in Ukraine. The name is LUAMI East. I would like to give the floor to Tetiana Barantsova. And Tetiana, perhaps you can tell us exactly how you think we can help you. Do you have any specific proposal for that? You are there, Tatiana?
Доброго дня.
Wonderful.
Дуже дякуємо вам за таку увагу до українців, до жінок з інвалідністю в ці важкі часи.
And we are very thankful to you for the attention that you provide to women with disabilities, especially in this difficult time for us that we experience now in Ukraine.
Я дуже щаслива бачити пані Ларису та Надію Паламарчук, чути ці жінки, які також стоять на чолі жіночого руху і дуже багато роблять.
And I'm very glad to see here Larissa and Nadia. They do a great job for support of women with disabilities, and they are in this moment for rights of people with disabilities as well.
Yeah, Maria, sorry. Maria is a translator. We cannot hear very well from you, Maria. So perhaps we can stay closer to the mic. Yes, okay. Please. Thank you. Tatiana, you have the floor. Yes, continue, please.
Лариса та Надія вже сказали те, що я хотіла сказати, я тільки додам.
And Larissa and Nadia said much, and she wants only to add some information.
Дуже надзвичайно складна ситуація для жінок, які знаходяться під обстрілами Луганська область, Чернігівська область, Житомир, коли було, а зараз особливо Луганська область та Маріуполь, Рубіжне, Сєвєродонецьк, Кремінна. Жінки з інвалідністю мусять знаходитися в підвалі вже більш ніж 1,5 тижня в надзвичайно важких умовах, без засобів гігієни, без санвузлу. Вони мають вже пролежні, мають рани, адже жінка не може не переодягнутися, нічого, зовсім ніякої гігієни зробити для себе.
And it's quite difficult situation for women who now in Ukraine, in Lugansk region and Zhytomyr region and other regions of Ukraine, because now there is shelling there, and they have to stay in the basements for a long period, for more than 2 weeks now, and in this basement they don't have any access to hygiene means. They don't have any access to bathrooms accessible for them, so they experience great needs there, and they are in quite very severe difficult situation. So they need help and assistance, especially because they are more vulnerable in this period.
Друга ситуація, коли великі дороги, коли ці дороги розтягуються на тиждень тільки по одній Україні, жінка також не має доступу для того, щоб якось себе забезпечити необхідним. Тим більше вона несе відповідальність за дітей, які поряд з нею, за родину, за батьків своїх. Хоча вона вже в дуже складній ситуації фізично.
And it's another great need for women with disabilities when they are evacuated. It takes a long time. It takes several days or 1 week to get to the place, to get to a safe place. And she should take care not about herself, but about her children, about her family members, and it's makes this situation worse, and it's very hard for her and for her family to be transported to this place and to be evacuated.
За кордоном, а вона знаходиться в іншій державі, вона не знає мови, вона також не має ще доступного житла, все незвичне, і діти, які потребують допомоги поряд. Це жінка, біженка з України, вона вже в новому стані, це навіть не 2014 рік, це ще важкіше.
And especially when these women with disabilities go abroad and go to a new place, they don't know language, they don't have accessible housing for them, and she needs to take care about her children, and it's new environment for her, and she doesn't have such support, and the situation becomes more complicated for her and more difficult in this time, even abroad.
Багато жінок пишуть, що я вже не можу стільки сидіти, в мене розпухли ноги, я не можу вже мені необхідно десь полежати. Тобто фізичний стан за цей час дуже погіршився у багатьох жінок з інвалідністю.
And during this period of evacuation and staying, maybe sitting for a long time in one place, and their legs are swallowed, and they they have difficult physical conditions, and that's why they beg and cry that we can't bear it more, because it's very difficult for us, and physically and emotionally, so they need support.
Що зробити, що необхідно зробити? Перше, саме головне, що ви з нами, що ми не одні, і ви, як завжди, протягнули руку підтримки.
And what we should need, we are very glad that you are with us, and we feel your support, and we are not alone, because we feel that you are supporting us, and it's very essential, it's very important for us now in this situation.
Ми сьогодні з пані Кетерін розмовляли про те, що необхідно залучати країни і просити їх, щоб, приймаючи біженців, звертали увагу на людей з інвалідністю, на ті потреби, які не є примхою, які є необхідністю.
And we today we talked with Catherine, and we emphasized that we need to involve different countries that accept refugees, especially women with disabilities, so that they should provide all necessary conditions for people with disabilities, like and they should take into account their needs, what they need.
Ми проговорювали, що за підтримки наших міжнародних партнерів в місті Львові, а може ще й в іншому місті, можливо, в Ужгороді, будуть облаштовані місця для тих, хто не може приїжджати за кордон, кому необхідна зараз термінова підтримка, розміщення, але облаштоване.
And we also had several discussions concerning Lviv and Uzhgorod, these two places where there is a great amount of refugees there stay in these cities, and we want to create such special centers for people with disabilities where they will be have such housing place where they can stay and live that is accessible for them and that coincide with their needs.
І я щаслива, що саме міжнародні жіночі організації, європейські організації розуміють, наскільки важлива гуманітарна допомога для українських громадських організацій, для того, щоб надати цю допомогу індивідуально тим, з ким ми працюємо. То я вам дуже дякую, продовжуємо працювати разом.
And she is very thankful to all international women's organizations that they take care about all NGOs organizations in order to help people individually and have such individual approach to every situation and try to support and help people who live in Ukraine and especially people with disabilities.
Thank you, Tatiana. It's a really a honor for all of us to hear from you. I wait for the translation. Maria, perhaps you can translate to Ukraine to Tatiana?
Yes, I will translate for Tatiana.
Yeah. So it's a real honor for all of us to hear from you, Tatiana. You are not alone. This is also our slogan in CERMI Women's Foundation. And of course, we'll see the best way to cooperate and to support you from here. So thank you. Thank you so much. So now we are quite a great we need to go further because we have some delay in our agenda. So now we are going to know how is the contribution, what is the contribution for the global movement of people with disabilities. And in this regard, I would like to pass the floor to the director of the European Disability Forum. Catherine, are you there?
Yes, me?
No, Catherine Norton, the director of Disability Forum. Thank you, the other Catherine. No, Catherine, I think. Are you there, Catherine?
For organizing this meeting today and for inviting the European Disability Forum to be present. And I would like to just give you an update on the work of the European Disability Forum together with our members since the beginning of the Ukraine war. So firstly, you will notice that on the website of the European Disability Forum, you see extensive information on the situation of persons with disabilities, which we try to update as often as we can. We made an immediate statement on the war, calling for peace and calling for protection and safety of persons with disabilities. We built up from the beginning a list of guidelines and tools on inclusive humanitarian action. So how the humanitarian community can provide inclusive and accessible support to people with disabilities in their mainstream humanitarian work, but also the specific support needed for people with disabilities during this time. You will also find on our website information which we hope is simple and easy to understand on the European Union's Temporary Protection Directive, which enables people fleeing the Ukraine war to arrive in European Union and immediately be able to start their lives and have access to services and support. And we also tried from the beginning and through our website to channel support to organizations of persons with disabilities who are working directly to support people with disabilities in Ukraine and also in the neighboring countries that are on the front line receiving people fleeing the war. We have been, of course, in regular contact with our members and with any other organizations of people with disabilities who have contacted us. We also immediately undertook advocacy towards European Union institutions together with our members. And we also have been in liaison with UN agencies that we have been trying to work closely with for them to understand also the situation of persons with disabilities. And we have taken part in different meetings that we've been asked to try to explain, but we've also been including people with disabilities from Ukraine in our own meetings to better understand what the immediate needs are. We had an extensive discussion on the situation in Ukraine at our board last week in Paris. So the EU and the member states will provide humanitarian support in and outside of Ukraine, including 120 million euro budget of support to Ukraine and 1.2 billion euro in emergency loans and 85 million euro in humanitarian aid is what we understand. So we have been working with people within the European institutions to explain the importance of making this inclusive and accessible, and we've been discussing also, in meetings with European Union officials, how this can be done. It's completely in line with the EU and its member states' commitments under the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We have been at any of the consultation meetings that have taken place by the EU that we can in order to explain the situation. We also had earlier this week a very good meeting with the President of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola. President Metsola was already very aware of the situation for people fleeing the Ukraine war, and we had discussion on how the EU's response can fully address the needs of people with disabilities arriving. We have actually tried to engage also with because the European Disability Forum, as you know, we're an umbrella organization of organizations of people with disabilities in Europe. We're not a humanitarian organization that's, mandated to or able to go into a conflict zone and provide support, but we have been receiving information from many of you in the meeting today, and we really thank you for this, on the dire humanitarian needs in Ukraine and the situation of people as they travel from Ukraine to other countries to safety. And we have been providing this information as we get it directly to the UN response team. We've been writing official letters, for example, to the head of the UN coordination, basically UN OCHA, which is the Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. We have been following up with attendance to protection cluster meetings and liaising with the Age and Disability Technical Working Group, and with a view to having a Ukrainian DPO disabled persons organization meaningfully involved in this mechanism. So also we are receiving a lot of requests directly for support of people who are en route. We've been making links between organizations of people with disabilities and humanitarian organizations. And we're also trying to develop with our members in the neighboring countries, especially programs we've been working with them to understand what they're doing and to help channel support to them. So I'm speaking to you directly today from Latvia, where I'm here with our member Sustento. Our colleagues have also been in direct discussions with the Polish Disability Forum, the Romanian Disability Forum, with our members in Slovakia. We're really trying to understand what our members are able to do and for us to help channel support to that work, because to make sure that donors who want to intervene and support, they can support the work of DPOs in these countries. So we're listening very carefully to everything that's been raised in the meeting today about the particular situation of women with disabilities. because we want to make sure that all of our support also really tackles specifically the situation of women with disabilities. So we'd like to thank everyone who's spoken already today and assure you that we're listening very carefully, and we'll follow up as well with CERMI Women's Foundation after the meeting to see how we can work together to create a really a response to this dreadful emergency and brutal war, the impact on women with disabilities, how we can make sure in our work that we really address that. So again, thank you very much for your for organising the meeting today. Thank you very much to everyone who's spoken and to your attention, and we will continue to work with all of you in the coming weeks and months. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Now we go to the Polish Disability Forum. I think Adam is already with us. Adam, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
So sorry about the delay, but we consider very important to have the chance to listen from the testimonies and intervention of women with disabilities from Ukraine. So sorry about that, but I think on the other hand, it's great to have all this information. So please tell us how the Polish Disability Forum is in this moment working, helping refugees with disabilities in your country. Adam.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm very humbled, and we are humbled to be at this webinar, and we see it as a crucial part to see the intersectionality of women with disabilities and girls with disabilities, but especially being as I would say, the ones that the hardships are most exposed for all of the violations and problems. And I'll try to be concise and tell about 3 elements. The point of view from our side, from the Polish side, that we are trying to get, and we have already had a huge number of cases of persons with disabilities coming through the border with Poland, but also many more information coming from Ukraine. And I would like to give some numbers and then tell about the situation, especially on the Polish side, and also what we are trying to do on the Ukrainian side. So just to take into perspective, Poland has already taken over 2 million refugees up to date. And to give it a number and to compare it, during the crisis, the previous crisis after the Syrian war, we've already now, within the last 3 weeks, had more refugees coming than 3 times more refugees coming than the whole crisis that's during the crisis of the year of the crisis because of the Syrian war. That means a huge number of persons. And I would like also to reiterate that this crisis, in terms of persons with disabilities, is nearly like no other within the last 25 years in Europe and in the close borders, because persons with disabilities do come in much bigger numbers and higher proportions than in the crisis before, especially when we compare it to the Syrian war, because of the vicinity and the possibility, any possibility to be in transfer and to flee, even though they are still the ones that are I would say the disability, we see it very, very clearly. It's the biggest factor for extreme hardship, discrimination, human rights violation, and atrocities. And especially women and girls with disabilities are the most exposed. And unfortunately, especially the ones that have intellectual disabilities or autism or any kinds of developmental disabilities are the ones that are exposed in I would say unbelievable part, especially if they cannot flee and they cannot get any additional support. From that side, I would like to say that one of the things that we are tackling, and we already have a number of nearly 100 organizations with number of supports that give very specific types of supports, both accessible transport from the border, assistance, also personal assistance. We give housing, which is accessible, and we give, at least for children with disabilities, women with disabilities, we've already had a number of cases when we managed to get them in school, to get education, even though it's still, it was up to 2 days ago illegal to do that. Organizations did that because they saw the need for that. And of course, other elements such as rehabilitation, other elements such as the possibility to get medical assistance, medical care, medical equipment, and of course, the parts that are usually the most problematic ones at the border crossings. For example, sanitary pad, the possibility to have an accessible sanitary place where you can, accessible toilets. These elements are sometimes referred by some authorities as, I would say, comfortable, being comfortable, as, you know, this is war, this is a hard situation for everybody. We see these, I would say, ableistic situations and perspective, unfortunately, still a number of times, because even though there is a huge number of persons who are working from grassroots and supporting refugees in Poland and of course outside of Poland, we still see that the situation of a disability gives I would say, is the biggest factor that makes it so hard to give sensible support. And of course, that means that many of the persons that come through the border already have severe health issues. For example, with their gastrointestinal tracts, with the problems with their skin upon being not in a specific place, which is not non-accessible for a number of days. And this is also a very big problem in terms of health and also risk of life. And we are trying to, from the two voivodeship, and I mean Lubelskie and Podkarpackie voivodeship, to have people working on the ground in Zamość and Przemysl and Jarosław to try to make sure that the people that do come through the border, even at 2 a.m., at 4 a.m., do get some kind of support. Because, and I have to reiterate that, unfortunately, there is still not much systemic support from the border crossing. Upon the border crossing, I mean accessible support for persons with disabilities. And because of the huge numbers, we do think that about 5 to 8% of persons, of refugees, have some kind of disability, excluding, of course, PTSD and problems related to war. And we do see that Poland and organizations in Poland not only are already over the top in their possibilities to give sensible, accessible support. And what we do see is that there are more and more numbers of persons who don't get sensible, accessible support because the local authorities or the government doesn't see it as such a huge issue as it is, and doesn't have enough places to support the persons. That is also why we are trying for the last week and a half to get also support to our friends in Lviv for the Center for Support of Persons with Disabilities. It's still hard, and I would like to say also one thing on a systemic perspective. Unfortunately, and I will say it from the ground perspective, I know that the High Commissioner for Refugees is doing probably great work on a very high level, but on the ground level, we do not see that much. I would say for the first 2 weeks, we didn't see that in Poland nearly, and at least in terms of persons with disabilities, we didn't see inclusive support, and still we do see it less than we should have. And for example, there's a subgroup on children in terms of the Polish coordination effort, but there is none for persons with disabilities. And it's at least the same kinds of scale of problems that we have. And we must do much, much more to get the support going through, because many of the persons that already fled, at least for a number of times, number of weeks, number of months, maybe years, will stay in the countries in Poland and other countries, Romania, Slovakia, and other countries, also other European countries. And we have to make sure that there is support now and there will be support in the future. The second thing is we need to get funds for accessible support, and we need to make sure that the funds that go have the accessibility part and taking into consideration, for example, the needs of women and girls with disabilities as one of the crucial factors. And the third part is we need to support the persons that are in Ukraine already, also in institutions, because unfortunately, about most of the institutions for adults and at least a big number of those for children, we still do not know what is exactly happening there. And that means that is not good news, because many of those places are already sometimes taken as hostages. I mean, psychiatric hospitals. There were at least 2 cases like this. And we do fear that the situation of those that we do not know nothing about sometimes is much worse than the ones that we already know about, and which have the capacity to go through the border, to go through the extreme hardships to cross and flee. So we try our best to get all the DPOs and NGOs working and get it online. But the scale of this crisis is so much bigger, and we need huge systemic work to be done there, both in Ukraine, both in the countries that are bordering, and also long-term support for the persons that will, for the time being, be outside Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much for this important work. We will, for sure, we'll be in contact with you to know a little more about perhaps situation of violence against women and girls with disabilities. So, for example, sexual exploitation. Perhaps that you have some information in this regard. So, really, thank you so much for the work that you are doing through the Polish Disability Forum. So now voy a cambiar a español. Now I change to Spanish porque me gustaría darle la palabra a José Luis.
I would like to give the floor to José Luis Martínez Domnoso, who's the president of the Commission of International Cooperation of CERMI, which is the platform, the Spanish platform, which represents disabled people and their families. That is around 8,000 organizations that this coordinates. What is being done from the CERMI? Thank you very much to you all. Thank you, my dear Anna. So first of all, I want to wish that peace comes back to Ukraine soon, that Ukrainian people can go back to their country. And now we would have the enormous task of rebuilding the country. And of course, they can count on Spain as a country, on myself as a citizen, and on CERMI to support people with disabilities. So my greatest peace wishes, and I hope that freedom is back in the streets of Ukraine as soon as possible. CERMI has the International Cooperation Commission, and we constituted the Emergency Commission for Ukraine, for the Ukraine. We have done what we were most concerned about was the law side, the regulations. We got in contact with the different ministries and sent them the documents for their analysis, that beyond any laws that could be made at the European level, we wanted people to come to Spain with the basic rights to residence, education, health, treatment, and so on. And there is an item we're still fighting for, is that we want them to have the disability certified, because if they don't have the that right acknowledged there would be great difficulties to be able to act in the different fields of the people with disabilities and their families. So the commitment of the government of Spain that possibly in a special rule that they're going to add for this, probably on the 29th, we will have a maximum rule that introduces the certification of disability certificates from Ukraine into Spain so that we can work with them. So two things, how do we act in the refugee camps? How can we work with the different situations of refugees in the different countries that are in the border with the Ukraine? And from there, how can we collaborate with the people with disabilities in general? In order to do so, we have found many difficulties. People with disabilities are in many cases still in the Ukraine in very specific groups or collectives, but there's some organizations such as the UNHCR and others. We have given them indications that if they identify citizens who are disabled, we have CERMI and other organizations in Spain that would host them and would have them with all the rights that they have acquired. And besides that, we are collecting a lot of assistance from the ONCE, the Blind People Association in Spain, in order to send great amounts of material to the border. We are not thinking of food. We're not thinking of clothing. We're thinking of the creation of great campaigns. We are also informed that many refugees want to stay close to the border, and that's logical and human because they have the hope that the conflict will end soon, and they have left their country, and in their country they have left many of their beloved, some men, women who are fighting in the war in order to defend their country, others due to their disability or due to, well, being too elderly, they have not been able to leave the country, and their wish is to go back to the country as soon as possible. So we expect there to be between 700 and 1 million people who will not want to get away from their country, far from the country, and we are going to send them some support via the army. And we're also working in the internal part, the reception of the people who are coming. We have a mapping exercise of the possibilities of residents, of host families, needs that the different disabilities may have, all the different disabilities they might face, the different types of disabilities. All the organizations have informed us of how much they can provide, how far they can help, and well, we've received a fantastic response, really fast in the first cases of disabled people who are coming to Spain, and the commitment of the CERMI is complete. We are aware that there are still many more people who are going to be arriving in the near future, and we are prepared. We have residents, we have personal assistants, technical material, support material. We're also going to assist them in the looking for work and employment so that they start entering the work market for these people with disabilities. Yesterday, we employed a person with a disability to welcome the people in Spain who is going to help us for the integration of these people in work. But we're doing this convinced that we are here with the Ukrainian people, and in our case, we represent disabled people, and we want to be the greatest assistance for their integration in Spain. We hope that this doesn't have to last too long. This is a country where the civil society is very well organized to assist disabled people, and we want to make the most of this capacity to have people as integrated as possible. We want to help them as much as possible. We want to give them as much love as we can, because we have a lot of love to give. And I want to give you a big hug to all of you, and anything you need, you can count on CERMI and with the emergency commission that has been created for you. José Luis, thank you very much. We're going to listen to what the platform of people with disabled people of Lithuania is doing. The Lithuanian Association is so carrying out a very important task in the reception of disabled refugees. Gunda Asha is their president. We're listening to you, Gunda.
I think we have the intervention in video for Gunta Ansha. Or perhaps we can try, if Gunta is not with us, we can try the video, David.
You should be listening to Gunta right now, but give me a second, please.
It's no sound. Perhaps Gunta is with us.
Just give me a second, Anna, and we will play Gunta.
By too many steps down, I can't go. For the organization CERMI, which organized this very important seminar about women and girls with disabilities in Ukraine. The situation is a really bad one, and I'm going to talk to you a bit more about the real situations there, just close to us, just a part of Europe. Why I started this work. My name is Gunta Ansha, and I'm coming from Latvia. I have a very good friend, Tatiana Barantsova. She lived in Kiev before, and we had some chats with her sometimes. But one day, when I just sitting in my kitchen and drink my tea, she sent me a voice message. And I have heard how the bombing is going around here. I have heard how she's saying to me, Gunta, you know, I'm sitting nearby shelter. There are too many steps down, I can't go there. But my son is staying just here and saying, Mom, I'm not gonna go down. I'm not gonna go down without you. I can't leave you here. And the situation was dramatic. And I said to Tatiana, come to Latvia. I'll help you to come, and I help you to work here in Latvia to make situation for people with disabilities, for women and girls with disabilities in Ukraine better. I know we can't stop the war. I know we can change the situation, at least for those who are there and to those who are trying to leave Ukraine and come to Europe. That's why I'm here, and that's why I'm talking with you about the situation. The first one question, one of the biggest one for girls and women with disabilities are accessible environment. There is a big problem not only about shelters. As I told you before, those shelters are inaccessible. There are too many steps, and even there are somebody who helps you to go down, there is no toilets. No toilets for people with disabilities, no possibility to go up for somewhere. So it's a real problem, and especially it's a really big problem for women and girls with disabilities. They've got a lot of difficulties with the kidney. They feel bad and their health getting bad during the very long trips. without bathrooms, without toilets, without possibility to rest. It takes about 5-6 days to go through the Ukraine to reach the border of the European Union. And all this time they haven't possibility to help themselves anyhow. If you are talking about accessibility, there is no places to stay which are accessible, and it is quite difficult to find those places in a shelters provided for those people who are living in Ukraine. There is no possibility to get accessible transportation. All trains don't have any kind of accessibility. We just have so many people in the trains that people can't go in on a wheelchair. People are left wheelchair behind. They are living without a wheelchair, and they are trying to reach the point where somebody, maybe us, could provide a wheelchair to continue the way. And that is a big problem for people with disabilities, for women and girls with disabilities. We also should talk more about accessibility of information. Those women and girls with disabilities who can't hear don't get any information in Ukraine, any information which is provided by radio, any information which is provided by different kind of videos or audios. So there is not any kind of support for silent translation, interpretation. There is no any kind of support they can get. So the only way is to ask people around and try to understand what they are saying and try to understand how to react to different situations. One of the biggest problems is on a border with Poland. I have quite a lot of situations where people are telling that they can't cross the border just because they can't explain a situation. They can't cross the border just because those people on the border with Poland don't know what does it mean, that people, they don't know how to communicate. They just think, oh, that's something crazy. Maybe it's better not to talk with them. And it makes a lot of problem for deaf people, for women and girls with disabilities on a border with Poland. And one of the biggest issue I'd like to talk with you today is the support and services. Those services which should be provided for people with disabilities, for women and girls with disabilities. They are crossing a border. They are very scared. They are lost. They don't know how to react in a situation. And when they are coming to a country, they can't get any kind of support and services, at least till the moment when they get a registration. And for those who cannot do anything, who need help, assistance every day, it's a big problem. And even a registration. I don't know about other countries, but in my country, the registration takes at least 2 weeks, but sometimes more. So it means person will stay without services, without support for 2 weeks, person with disabilities, which means it is a real problem for them to live in and to arrange their life. Just one more story at the end of my presentation I'd like to tell you. It's a story of Radha. Vlada is a young and really nice girl. She has a muscular dystrophy. She can't walk. She has a very weak hand. She can't manage herself. She has a wonderful husband. Her husband does everything to help her. He's helping in a day, on a night. He's a really good friend and really good assistant. But when Vlada decided to leave Ukraine on a border with Poland, they said that the guys, like her husband, should stay in Ukraine and go to army. From one side, that's okay. From one side, everybody who is older than 18 years should go to the army. From other side, now Vlada don't have any kind of assistance. She came to Riga. She came to Riga without sleeping, without any help. She's in a wheelchair, and we are very happy here in Riga to find some kind of support to her. But I'm sure there are so many girls and women with disabilities who really do need support in the same level, but we don't know them. So I'm sure we should start a really good coordination. We should start thinking how to find those people, those girls, those women, those who are coming from Ukraine, who are trying to live, not to be killed, and only together we can change the situation. Only together with you, with the different countries, with the different agencies, with the different institutions, we could make a situation better. As I said before, we can't stop the war. As I said before, we can try to change the situation to make it easier for people with disabilities in Ukraine.
Pues muchísimas gracias, Gunta. Llegamos ya al final de este seminario.
Very much. Gunta, we have two more presentations which we will share with you, but we are coming to the end now of the seminar. We will post the videos on our website along with the recording of the seminar, but unfortunately, due to lack of time, we don't have time to show the videos today. The first one is a presentation by Francisco Javier Rebollo, who is the sub-director, who is the Deputy General Director at the Director General for Disability Policies. I would like to thank him very much for responding to our request. We will show the video now, and also we have an intervention by the Spanish Commission for Refugee Aid, a message from Raquel Santos. We will find out what this commission is doing, what protection is being given to refugees, and in particular in relation to gender and disabilities. We will now show the video for the Subdirectorate General for Civil Dialogue at the Directorate General for Disability Policies, and then the video from the Spanish Commission for Refugee Aid. Can we start the video? This is the interpreter speaking, I'm afraid. Okay, now we have sound. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation to take part in this seminar, which CERMI Women's Foundation is organizing. It's a very important seminar, very much needed at this present time to make the situation of people with disabilities more visible, and especially women and girls with disabilities in Ukraine. I would like to send warm greetings to all the organizations taking part in the seminar and offer you all our support from the Director General for Disability Policies, and especially all those organizations that are working on the ground taking part in this seminar. I would like to, first of all, congratulate CERMI Women's Foundation for the recent award given to them by the Royal Board on Disability, the Queen Letizia Awards in the Advocacy for Persons with Disabilities category. Very well, very much deserved, concerning the great efforts in the fight against the discrimination that women with disabilities suffer. And it's also an award for all the work that you are doing, or that you have done, to eradicate forced sterilization of persons with disabilities who are legally incapacitated in Spain. And we have achieved this now due to the recent reform of the penal code. So, to the matter at hand, I would just like to point out that we are totally committed to assisting in this humanitarian disaster. We are working with other ministries to give the best possible care and attention to people with disabilities from the Ukraine. The first message is a message of thanks to civil society, the disability movement. You are showing once again your commitment and solidarity. The Spanish disability movement from the very outset has been working very hard to ensure the best possible reception for refugees with disabilities. You have the support, placing at the support of the central government and other authorities all your expertise. On the 8th of March, we had the first meeting through the Ministry for Inclusion and the Ministry for Social Affairs and the 2030 Agenda, and CERMI, representing civil society, regarding international cooperation. This meeting was a very great success, where it was agreed that everyone should work together, as I said, to give the most suitable response to refugees, men and women refugees with disabilities arriving from Ukraine. We recognize the need to work on this, to have mechanisms in place very quickly, to recognize the level of disability of the persons involved. We need to legalize, formalize their legal situation so that they are able to enjoy the whole range of social services and protection which we offer here. We have also taken first steps in terms of regulations. On the 10th of March, in the official state bulletin, two important agreements were published. The first one by the Cabinet regarding people affected by the conflict in Ukraine and refuge in Spain. This refers to people who are already protected, but it also widens this protection to Ukrainian nationals who were in Spain before February 2022 and who, as a result of the conflict, cannot return to the Ukraine, and their spouses and children dependent persons. Also, nationals from third states, third parties, or stateless persons who arrive from the Ukraine, along with their spouses, their underage children, and dependent persons. And also, other people will benefit are Ukrainian nationals who were in an irregular situation before the 22nd of February. Because of these new regulations, there's another set of regulations regarding temporary protection for persons affected by the conflict in Ukraine. This order sets in motion fast-track processes. The rules makes it easier for people affected to gain access to temporary protection. The person involved will ask for this protection in the reception centres set up by the Ministry for Inclusion. And in record time, their applications will be dealt with in 24 hours. And these people will be able to stay in Spain, will be able to work, will be able to receive social services. Of course, they will also have access to basic services such as education and health. The first reception center is already operating in Pozuelo, a capacity for 750 people, which we can increase to 1,200 people, and there will be 2 more centers in Barcelona and Alicante. These are the reception points for the people who arrive. And all of these centers have been equipped with accessibility measures. We need to detect, we need to know what their most pressing needs are of everyone, but especially people with disabilities. We will provide transport to any part of Spain if they have some kind of, if they have any relatives in the countries, or they can be housed temporarily in those centers, and then they can move on to any other part of Spain. We are now making a great effort to find families who are willing to take in children and adults with disabilities. We are working with civil society on a mapping exercise of support which is available to put that, make that available to people with disabilities arriving from Ukraine. We mustn't forget the business sector, who can also provide some basic, meet some of the basic needs. I remember hearing aids which were provided and other types of assistance. In conclusion, I wish you all the very best for the seminar, and I would like to thank you once again for your huge commitment to persons with disabilities. Let's hope that peace comes soon. Warmest hugs to all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Francisco Javier. So we're coming to the end of the seminar. We don't have a lot of time to open the floor, but I would like Isabel Caballero, who's a coordinator at CERMI Women's Foundation, if she can explain a little what's been going on in the chat. Isabel, you have the floor. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Very nice to greet you all. Yeah, there have been some questions which have been raised, and throughout the seminar, they've received replies. One issue, which was of particular concern, is to have people's Ukrainian disability cards recognized in the European Union and in Spain. This was a question for Catherine Naughton from the EDF. And this was one of the demands, one of the priority demands. We also had the opportunity to read the response from Spain, from the Commission, the CERMI Commission for Cooperation, which stresses the need for recognition of these cards, disability cards, in Spain, so that people with disabilities from Ukraine can have access to all of their rights. This is one of the questions that were raised. We had some questions about the needs of, well, from women with disabilities in the Ukraine. The need for medicine, the need for food, highlighting that in Kyiv there are resources, but in smaller cities, many people are living in basements, and there are people with disabilities, boys and girls with disabilities, who don't have access to basic food, and also that water, there's a water shortage in some areas. Of course, medicine. Some people have reported that some countries in the European Union are not offering access to healthcare for people from Ukraine. And they are being offered, they are being given healthcare by the Red Cross. People who need to have access to a very specific type of medicine, but they don't have a prescription, so they can't have access to these medicines that they need. So Anna, basically this is what has been going on in the chat, well, through the chat, the seminar, but also in private messages, direct messages. I think this really does show the serious situation that women and boys and girls with disabilities are facing in the country. Many thanks, Isabel. Of course, it's an extremely pressing matter. CERMI Women's Foundation has drafted a manual, a guide to provide professional support, technical support, to explain how to provide technical support to women and girls with disabilities and mothers of children with disabilities at the border when they move cross into other countries. And of course, it can also be used to help women and girls with disabilities and mothers of persons with disabilities in other situations where there are refugees. We're also working with the European Disability Forum Women's Committee. We think we're working on this guide right now, but we think it will be ready in about 10 minutes in Spanish and in English for everyone to use. We have now reached the end of the seminar. On behalf of CERMI Women's Foundation, I'd like to thank Isabel Caballero, David Bacas, thank the interpreters, English-Spanish interpreters, David Sturton and Jaime Roda. Also our thanks to the sign language interpreters, Asun and Isabel, and also, of course, thank very much the Polish Disability Forum, the European Disability Forum, the Latvian Disability Forum, and CERMI for the very, very important work that they are carrying out. Warmest thanks to all the women from Ukraine who have taken part, who have brought their testimonies, their personal stories, the stories of so many women with disabilities and children with disabilities in the country, and also the High Commissioner for Refugees for the opening message. And of course, we trust this support, as Adam said, will reach down into grassroots level on the ground. We have had perhaps some difficulties due to the language barrier, but we felt it was very important not to leave women and girls with disabilities in Ukraine on their own, and mothers of children with disabilities. Hugs, warmest regards to everyone, and let's hope that this war will end soon. Thank you.